Book 5, Canto 3, The Legend of Artegall. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alan Brown, Houston. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Book 5, The Legend of Artegall. Canto 3. The spousals of fair Florimel, where tourney many knights. There braggadocio is uncased in all the ladies' sights. After long storms and tempests overblown, the sun at length his joyous face doth clear. So when as Fortune all her spight hath shown, some blissful hours at last must needs appear. Else should afflicted wights oft times despair. So comes it now to Florimel by turn, after long sorrows suffered whileare, in which captiv'd she many months did mourn, to taste of joy, and to wont pleasures to return. Who being freed from Proteus' cruel band by Marinell, was unto him affied, and by him brought again to Faerie land, where he her spoused, and made his joyous bride. The time and place was blazed far and wide, and solemn feasts and justs ordained therefore, to which there did resort from every side of lords and ladies infinite great store. Ne any knight was absent that brave courage bore, to tell the glory of the feast that day, the goodly service, the deviceful sights, the bridegroom's state, the bride's most rich array, the pride of ladies, and the worth of knights. The royal banquets and the rare delights were work fit for an herald, not for me, but for so much as to my lot here lights, that with this present treatise doth agree. True virtue to advance shall here recounted be. When all men had with full satiety of meats and drinks their appetites suffized, to deeds of arms and proof of chivalry they gan themselves address, full rich aguized, as each one had his furnitures devized. And first of all issued Sir Marinell, and with him 6 knights more, which enterprized to challenge all in right of Florimel, and to maintain that she all others did excell. The first of them was hight Sir Orimont, a noble knight, and tried in hard assayes. The second had to name Sir Bellisant, but second unto none in prowess praise. The third was Brunel, famous in his dayes. The fourth a Castor, of exceeding might. The fifth Armedon, skilled in lovely layes. The sixth was Lansac, a redouted knight. All 6 well seen in armes, and proved in many a fight. And them against came all that list to just, from every coast and country under sun. None was debarred, but all had leave that lust. The trumpet sound, then all together run. Full many deeds of armes that day were done, and many knights unhorsed, and many wounded, as fortune fell, yet little lost or won. For all that day the greatest praise redounded to Marinell, whose name the heralds loud resounded. The second day, so soon as morrow light appeared in heaven, into the field they came, and there all day continued cruel fight, with divers fortune fit for such a game, in which all strove with peril to win fame. Yet whether side was victor, note be guessed. But at the last the trumpets did proclaim that Marinell that day deserved best. So they disparted were, and all men went to rest. The third day came, that should due trial lend of all the rest. And then this warlike crew together met, of all to make an end. There Marinell great deeds of armes did shew, and through the thickest like a lion flew, rashing off helmes and riving plates asunder, that every one his daunger did eschew. So terribly his dreadful ftrokes did thunder, That all men stood amazed, and at his might did wonder. But what on earth can alwayes happy ftand? The greater prowefle greater perils find. So far he paft amongft his enemies band, That they have him enclofed fo behind, As by no meanes he can himfelfe outwind. And now perforce they have him prifoner taken, And now they do with captive bands him bind, And now they lead him thence of all forfaken, Unleffe fome fuccour had in time him overtaken. It fortun'd, whileft they were thus ill befet, Sir Artegall into the Tilt-yard came, With Braggadochio, whom he lately met Upon the way, with that his fnowy dame. Where when he underftood by common fame What evill hap to Marinell betid, He much was moved at fo unworthy fhame, And ftreight that boafter prayd, with whom he rid, To change his fhield with him, to be the better hid. So forth he went, and foone them overhent, Where they were leading Marinell away, Whom he affayled with dreadlefle hardiment, And forced the burden of their prize to ftay. They were 100 knights of that array, Of which the one halfe upon himfelfe did fet, The other ftayd behind to gard the pray. But he ere long the former 50 bet, And from the other 50 foone the prifoner fet. So back he brought Sir Marinell againe, Whom having quickly arm'd againe anew, They both together joyned might and maine, To fet afrefh on all the other crew, Whom with fore havocke foone they overthrew, And chaced quite out of the field, that none Againft them durft his head to peril fhew. So were they left lords of the field alone, So Marinell by him was rescued from his fone. Which when he had performed, then back againe To Braggadochio did his fhield reftore, Who all this while behind him did remaine, Keeping there clofe with him in precious ftore, That his falfe lady, as ye heard afore. Then did the trumpets found, and the judges rofe, And all thefe knights, which that day armour bore, Came to the open hall to liften, whofe The honour of the prize fhould be adjudged by thofe. And thither alfo came in open fight Faire Florimell into the common hall, To greet his guerdon unto every knight, And beft to him, to whom the beft fhould fall. Then for that ftranger knight they loud did call, To whom that day they fhould the guerlond yield. Who came not forth, but for Sir Artegall came Braggadochio, and did shew his fhield, Which bore the funne brode blazed in a golden field. The fight whereof did all with gladnefle fill, So unto him did they addeeme the prize Of all that triumph. Then the trumpets fhrill Don Braggadochio's name refounded thrice, So courage lent a cloke to cowardice. And then to him came faireft Florimell, And goodly gan to greet his brave emprize, And 1000 thankes him yield, that had fo well Approved that day, that fhe all others did excell. To whom the boafter, that all knights did blot, With proud difdaine did fcornfull anfwere make, That what he did that day, he did it not For her, but for his own deare ladies fake, Whom on his peril he did undertake, Both her and eke all others to excell. And further did uncomely fpeaches crake, Much did his words the gentle lady quell, And turned afide for fhame to heare what he did tell. Then forth he brought his fnowy Florimell, Whom Trompart had in keeping there befide, Covered from peoples gazement with a veile, Whom when difcovered they had throughly eyde, With great amazement they were ftupifide, And faid, that furely Florimell it was. For if it were not Florimell fo tride, That Florimell herfelfe fhe then did pas, So feeble fkill of perfect things the vulgar has. Which when as Marinell beheld likewise, he was therewith exceedingly dismayed, ne wist he what to think, or to devise. But like as one, whom fiends had made afraid, he long astonished stood, ne aught he said, ne aught he did, but with fast fixed eyes he gazed still upon that snowy maid, whom ever as he did the more avise, the more to be true Florimell he did surmise. As when two sunnes appeare in the azure sky, mounted in Phoebus' chariot fiery bright, both darting forth faire beames to each mans eye, and both adorned with lampes of flaming light, all that behold so strange prodigious sight, not knowing natures worke, nor what to weene, are rapt with wonder and with rare affright. So stood Sir Marinell, when he had feene the femblant of this falce by his faire beauties Queene. All which when Artegall, who all this while stood in the preace clofe covered, well adviewed, and faw that boafters pride and gracelefle guile, he could no longer beare, but forth iffued, and unto all himfelfe there open shewed, and to the boafter faid, thou lofel bafe, that hast with borrowed plumes thy felfe endewed, and others worth with leafings doft deface, when they are all restored, thou shalt reft in difgrace. That fhield, which thou doft beare, was it indeed, which this dayes honour faved to Marinell, but not that arme, nor thou the man I reed, which didft that fervice unto Florimell. For proofe shew forth thy fword, and let it tell what ftrokes, what dreadfull ftore it ftert this day, or shew the wounds which unto thee befell, or shew the fweat with which thou didst fway so sharp a battle, that so many did dismay. But this the fword, which brought thofe cruel ftounds, and this the arme, the which that fhield did beare, and thefe the fignes, so shewed forth his wounds, by which that glory gotten doth appeare. As for this lady, which he sheweth here, is not, I wager, Florimell at all, but some faire Franion, fit for fuch affaire, and by misfortune in his hand did fall. For proof whereof he bad them Florimell forth call. So forth the noble lady was ybrought, adorned with honour and all comely grace, whereto her bafhfull fhamefacednefle ywrought a great increafe in her faire blufhing face, as rofes did with lilies interlace. For of thofe words, the which that boafter threw, she inly yet conceived great difgrace, whom when as all the people fuch did view, they fhouted loud, and fignes of gladnefle all did shew. Then did he set her by that fnowy one, like the true Saint beside the image set, of both their beauties to make paragon, and trial, whether fhould the honour get. Straightway so foon as both together met, the enchanted damzell vanifht into naught. Her fnowy subftance melted as with heat, ne of that goodly hue remained aught, but the empty girdle, which about her waist was wrought. As when the daughter of Thaumantes faire hath in a watery cloud difplayed wide her goodly bow, which paints the liquid aire, that all men wonder at her colours pride. All suddenly, ere one can looke afide, the glorious picture vanisheth away, ne any token doth thereof abide. So did this ladies goodly forme decay, and into nothing go, ere one could it bewray. Which when as all that present were beheld, they stricken were with great aftonifhment, and their faint harts with fencelefle horror queld, to see the thing, that feemed so excellent, so ftolen from their fancies wonderment, that what of it became none underftood. And Braggadocchio's felfe with dreariment so daunted was in his despairing mood, that like a lifelefle corfe immovable he stood. But Artegall, that golden belt uptooke, the which of all her spoile was onely left, which was not hers, as many it mistooke, but Florimels owne girdle, from her reft, while she was flying, like a weary weft, from that foule monfter, which did her compell to perils great, which he unbuckling eft presented to the fairest Florimell, who round about her tender waist it fitted well. Full many ladies often had aflayd about their middles that faire belt to knit, and many a one fupposed to be a mayd, yet it to none of their loynes would fit, till Florimell about her faftened it. Such powre it had, that to no womans waist by any skill or labour it would fit, unleffe that she were continent and chaft, but it would loose or breake, that many had difgraced. Whileft thus they bufied were bout Florimell, and boastfull braggadocio to defame, Sir Guyon, as by fortune then befell, forth from the thickeft prefle of people came, his owne good fteed, which he had ftolen, to claime, and the one hand feizing on his golden bit, with the other drew his fword, for with the fame he meant the thiefe there deadly to have smit, and had he not been held, he nought had failed of it. Thereof great hurly-burly moved was throughout the hall for that fame warlike horfe, for Braggadocio would not let him passe, and Guyon would him algates have perforce, or it approve upon his carrion courfe. Which troublous ftir when Artegall perceived, he nigh them drew, to ftay the avengers force, and gan enquire how was that fteed bereaved, whether by might extort, or else by flight deceived. Who all that piteous ftory, which befell about that wofull couple, which were flaine, and their young bloody babe, to him gan tell, with whom whiles he did in the wood remaine. His horfe purloyned was by fubtle traine, for which he challenged the thiefe to fight, but he for naught could him thereto conftraine, for as the death he hated fuch defpight, and rather had to lofe, then try in armes his right. Which Artegall well hearing, though no more by law of armes there need ones right to try, as was the wont of warlike knights of yore, then that his foe should him the field deny, yet further right by tokens to defcry, he asked, what privy tokens he did beare. If that, faid Guyon, may you fatisfy, within his mouth a black spot doth appeare, fhaped like a horfes fhoe, who list to feeke it there. Whereof to make due triall, one did take the horfe in hand, within his mouth to looke, but with his heeles so forely he him ftrake, that all his ribs he quite in pieces broke, that never word from that day forth he spoke. Another that would feeme to have more wit, him by the bright embrodered headftall tooke, but by the fhoulder him so fore he bit, that he him maimed quite, and all his fhoulder fplit. Ne he his mouth would open unto wight, until that Guyon felfe unto him fpake, and called Brigador, so was he hight, whofe voice so foone as he did undertake, eftfoones he stood as ftill as any ftake, and suffered all his fecret marke to fee. And when as he him named, for joy he brake his bands, and followed him with gladfull glee, and friskt, and flung aloft, and louted low on knee. Thereby Sir Artegall did plaine areed, that unto him the horfe belonged, and faid, Lo there, Sir Guyon, take to you the fteed, as he with golden faddle is arayd, and let that losel, plainely now difplayd, hence fare on foot, till he an horfe have gayned. But the proud boafter gan his doome upbrayd, and him reviled, and rated, and difdayned, that judgment so unjuft against him had ordayned. Much was the knight incenft with his lewd word, to have revenged that his villany, and thrice did lay his hand upon his fword, to have him slain, or dearely done aby. But Guyon did his choler pacify, saying, Sir Knight, it would dishonour be to you, that are our judge of equity, to wreak your wrath on such a carle as he. It's punishment enough, that all his shame do see. So did he mitigate Sir Artegall, but Talus by the back the boaster hent, and drawing him out of the open hall, upon him did inflict this punishment. First he his beard did shave, and foully shent, then from him reft his shield, and it renverst, and blotted out his armes with falsehood blent, and himself baffled, and his armes unherst, and broke his sword in twain, and all his armour spurst. The whiles his guilefull groome was fled away, but vaine it was to think from him to fly, who overtaking him did disarray, and all his face deformed with infamy, and out of court him scourged openly. So ought all faitors that true knighthood shame, and armes dishonour with bafe villainy, from all brave knights be banisht with defame, for oft their lewdness blotteth good deserts with blame. Now when these counterfeits were thus uncased, out of the foresight of their forgery, and in the sight of all men clean disgraced, all gan to jest and gibe full merrily at the remembrance of their knavery. Ladies can laugh at ladies, knights at knights, to think with how great vaunt of bravery he them abused through his subtle flights, and what a glorious shew he made in all their fights. There leave we them in pleafure and repaft, spending their joyous dayes and gladfull nights, and taking ufury of time forepaft, with all deare delicies and rare delights, fit for such ladies and such lovely knights. And turne we here to this faire furrowes end our weary yokes, to gether frefher fprights, that when as time to Artegall shall tend, we on his firft adventure may him forward fend. End of Canto 3, Book 5. The Legend of Artegall.